Power is not given to the deserving. It is seized by those willing to shape the world as if it were clay, to bend its contours until necessity itself obeys. Success is not earned in the way the masses imagine through virtue, hard work, or divine justice. It is engineered, constructed stone by stone, deception by deception, until what was once fragile ambition becomes an unshakable fortress. The crowd believes in fairness because it comforts them. They cling to the illusion that merit will rise, that honesty is rewarded, that loyalty ensures survival. Yet history does not whisper these lies, it screams their opposite. Kingdoms are not built on innocence. Empires are not preserved by purity. Those who last are those who understood that success must be designed, like the walls of a citadel, calculated for siege and defense, never left to chance. To govern, one must treat loyalty as both a gift and a weapon. It is fragile, conditional, as fleeting as the wind. Men swear fidelity when it costs them nothing, but the moment ambition offers them more, they betray. The wise ruler does not curse betrayal. He anticipates it. He structures his alliances as one builds scaffolding temporary, necessary, replaceable. To believe loyalty eternal is to build a palace on shifting sand. Fear, too, is a currency. It corrodes slowly, but it binds more firmly than affection. Love evaporates when storms arrive, but fear endures, carved into the marrow of memory. The ruler who wishes to be both loved and feared pursues the impossible. The ruler who settles for fear understands permanence. Success is engineered when men respect the limits you impose more than the promises you offer. Appearances are the armor of power. Men do not see truth, they see theater. To command perception is to command reality itself. The wise leader performs virtue when convenient, displays generosity when it disarms suspicion, projects mercy when it strengthens control. But behind the mask lies the steel of calculation. Without the mask, the steel is exposed and feared. Without the steel, the mask collapses into ridicule. Both must exist together, for the game of power is staged upon the eyes of others. Ambition is never satisfied. It grows like fire, consuming what it touches, demanding new fuel, new conquest, new enemies. To deny this is to suffocate. To indulge without restraint is to burn to ash. The architect of success learns to feed ambition carefully, to let it devour only what strengthens him, and to deny it what would weaken. Success is engineered not by extinguishing desire, but by chaining it, harnessing it, as one does a wild beast. Exile teaches the truth of betrayal. When stripped of office, wealth, or title, one discovers who stands and who vanishes. It is then the nature of men becomes transparent. Their loyalty fades, their friendship dissolves, their gratitude rots. Yet exile also sharpens vision. It teaches that the true foundation of power lies not in affection, but in structure, in institutions controlled, armies loyal, resources secured, narratives shaped. What is engineered cannot be destroyed by misfortune, for it is built to withstand storms. Success, then, is not a crown that descends from heaven. It is a fortress constructed in the shadows, brick by brick, lie by lie, choice by ruthless choice. It demands patience when others rush, cruelty when others hesitate, silence when others boast. It requires understanding that men are ruled not by ideals but by fears, hungers, and illusions. Those who wait to be rewarded will vanish nameless in history. Those who design their ascent will be remembered as rulers, as conquerors, as survivors. Success is engineered, and those who refuse to learn this truth will forever serve those who already have. Success demands calculation, not hope. The world is not moved by prayers of justice, but by the architecture of force and the mastery of perception. To believe that truth alone compels men is to misunderstand human nature. Men are swayed by appearances, by fear of loss, by the promise of gain, by the certainty of discipline. They do not follow virtue, they follow advantage, and they respect only what they cannot overturn. Thus, success is engineered through an unrelenting awareness of these currents, through the shaping of men as one shapes metal in fire, molding their instincts toward obedience and their fears toward silence. There is no permanence in affection. Gratitude fades, trust evaporates, admiration shifts like the tides. What endures is the structure you build to bind men against their inclinations, to trap their weakness within your strength. The engineer of success does not rely upon affection, but designs systems where betrayal is costly, where loyalty is profitable, where rebellion is isolated before it breathes. To imagine otherwise is to surrender to ruin, for the moment of crisis always reveals the truth. Men love when convenient, but they obey when necessary. Every act of leadership is theater, and every theater requires a script. You must decide whether to play the role of the merciful guardian, the unyielding commander, or the magnanimous patron. But never mistake the stage for reality. Behind every gesture lies calculation. Behind every smile lies steel. To abandon the mask is to invite destruction, for the masses do not forgive cruelty when it is naked, nor do they respect virtue when it is powerless. They follow illusions that comfort them, but they submit to strength that disciplines them. The ruler must therefore be both illusionist and executioner, admired for appearances, yet feared for consequences. Betrayal is not an accident, but a certainty. It is the nature of men to betray when the balance of power shifts, when ambition promises them more than loyalty pays. The wise ruler does not curse the traitor, for he is merely acting in accordance with his nature. Instead, the ruler calculates the inevitability of betrayal and prepares traps, alliances, and instruments of terror to contain it. To be surprised by treachery is the failure not of others, but of oneself. The engineer of success treats loyalty as a shifting currency, never hoarded, never trusted, always weighed against fear and interest. The crowd speaks of morality as if it were a compass, but in politics, morality is a tool. It is useful when it grants legitimacy, dangerous when it exposes weakness, and disposable when necessity demands cruelty. To cling to virtue for its own sake is to place one's head willingly upon the block. The world does not reward purity, it rewards control. Thus, morality must be wielded like a sword in ceremony, gleaming under the light of approval, but sheathed in moments of necessity, where cruelty and deceit preserve the state. Success belongs not to the righteous, but to the calculating, to those who understand that virtue is valuable only when it strengthens power. Fear is the spine of order. Men obey not because they are noble, but because they dread consequence. A ruler who relies on affection governs a fragile kingdom, for love flees at the first sign of peril. A ruler who commands fear holds men even in their hatred, for hatred still obeys when destruction awaits disobedience. The engineer of success calculates fear as carefully as an architect measures stone. Too little, and the structure collapses in disorder. Too much, and revolt brews in silence. The balance is delicate, but when mastered, it builds a fortress stronger than steel. Ambition is the furnace of power. Left unchecked, it consumes the ruler himself, but when harnessed, it forges empires. To deny ambition is to suffocate the will to command. To indulge it recklessly is to invite collapse. The true architect of success learns to feed ambition with victories that strengthen, to starve it of temptations that weaken, to discipline it as one disciplines a restless army. For ambition is both the master and the servant, the fire that can either light the city or burn it to the ground. Exile teaches lessons that triumph conceals. In exile, masks fall away. The false friends vanish, the loyal few reveal themselves. The emptiness of gratitude becomes visible. Exile strips a man of illusions, leaving only the hard bones of truth. That power rests not upon affection but upon command, not upon justice but upon discipline, not upon virtue but upon structure. To lose power is to see with clarity. To regain it is to wield with cold precision. The engineer of success builds not for the moment of triumph, but for the storm of downfall, ensuring that even in exile, the foundations remain intact, waiting to be reclaimed. The machinery of power is relentless, cold, unfeeling. It does not bend for sentiment. It does not pause for innocence. It does not yield to weakness. Those who understand this architecture become its masters. Those who deny it become its victims. Success is not the crown of the worthy. It is the fortress of the prepared. It is engineered through patience, deception, cruelty, and foresight, through the relentless shaping of appearances and the merciless calculation of necessity. The masses will never see this truth, for they prefer the illusions that comfort them. But the ruler must live in the truth that preserves him. Success is constructed, not granted. Success demands vigilance, for power once gained is never secure. Every throne is a seat upon shifting ground, every crown a target for envy, every alliance a temporary truce in the endless struggle for advantage. To believe stability permanent is to invite decay, for the forces that raised a ruler are the same forces that will one day conspire to unseat him. Thus, the wise leader does not rest upon triumphs, but continually engineers the conditions of survival, reinforcing his walls, reshaping his image, and renewing the fear and respect that bind men to obedience. Control is not achieved through brute force alone. Armies may seize territory, but they cannot seize the hearts of men. Hearts are conquered through illusions, through narratives that give meaning to submission, through symbols that transform obedience into loyalty. The engineer of success understands that banners and ceremonies matter as much as swords, that the theater of power must be as carefully constructed as its armies. To neglect appearance is to invite suspicion, and suspicion is the seed of rebellion. The ruler must therefore weave fictions that flatter, myths that inspire, and spectacles that conceal the machinery of control beneath the veil of destiny. Yet illusions without teeth are brittle. Power must always be undergirded by the capacity for violence. Mercy is admired, but only when it is optional. Generosity is respected, but only when it can be withdrawn. Men forgive cruelty when it is necessary, but they never forgive weakness. Thus, the ruler must always appear capable of decisive force, even when he chooses restraint. To wield mercy without the ability to punish is to invite mockery. To punish without reason is to invite revolt. Success is engineered by mastering the equilibrium between appearance and reality, between the velvet glove and the iron fist. Human nature is not noble. It is restless, suspicious, and easily corrupted. Men envy what they cannot have, despise what they cannot control, and betray what they no longer fear. To build upon their nobility is to build upon sand. To build upon their vices is to build upon stone. The ruler who understands this truth designs his state not for what men ought to be, but for what they are. He anticipates greed by rewarding it selectively. He anticipates betrayal by making it costly. He anticipates rebellion by ensuring it is futile. To govern men is to govern instincts, not ideals. Fortune is a river that floods without warning. It sweeps away the careful, the timid, and the weak, leaving only those who prepared their banks strong enough to withstand the current. To rely on fortune is to gamble with ruin. To master fortune is to build structures that channel its force to one's advantage. Success is not a gift of fate, but the result of foresight. The ruler who engineers his rise anticipates storms before they arrive, prepares defenses before they are needed, and uses opportunity before it vanishes. He does not curse misfortune when it comes. He bends it, redirects it, and transforms it into advantage. In politics, perception is stronger than truth. The masses do not seek accuracy, they seek certainty. They prefer the comfort of a decisive illusion over the discomfort of a complex reality. A ruler who fails to understand this loses the stage to one who does. The engineer of success, therefore, speaks not to reason alone, but to instinct, to fear, to desire. He offers simple images that conceal complex realities, symbols that speak faster than words, gestures that strike deeper than policies. To control the imagination of men is to control their obedience, for men are ruled more by stories than by laws. Time is the silent enemy of all rulers. Every generation forgets the struggles of the last. Every victory erodes with complacency. Every structure decays unless renewed. Thus, success must not only be engineered, but constantly maintained, rebuilt as one sharpens a blade that dulls with use. The wise ruler prepares heirs, institutions, and narratives that outlive his body, for power that ends with one man dies quickly, but power embedded in structures becomes immortal. The architect of success does not merely conquer for himself, he designs for permanence, so that the edifice endures even as its builder falls to dust. The theater of politics is merciless. Every actor wears a mask, every gesture conceals calculation, every alliance hides ambition. To walk this stage without awareness is to be consumed by it. The engineer of success does not play the role assigned to him, but writes his own script, manipulates the stage, and directs the actors around him. He knows when to appear generous and when to appear ruthless, when to display faith and when to cloak deceit, when to let others shine and when to extinguish their light. Politics is not a contest of truth, but a contest of appearances, and those who master the stage master the world. Power is a negotiation with necessity, and necessity never bargains. It demands sacrifice, it strips away sentiment, it reduces choices to survival or extinction. Those who hesitate at the edge of necessity are consumed by it, while those who embrace it carve a path through the chaos. To rule is not to indulge ideals, but to endure the weight of necessity and to wield it without trembling. Success is engineered by those who understand that mercy, justice, and even cruelty are instruments, not ends in themselves, and that the only true end is preservation of command. The enemies of a ruler are never fully vanquished. When one falls, another rises, for ambition is as natural as hunger and as endless as desire. To imagine permanent victory is to blind oneself. To prepare for perpetual struggle is to endure. The engineer of success accepts that politics is a cycle of conflict, and he shapes his reign not around illusions of peace, but around mechanisms of defense and renewal. He leaves no rival unobserved, no ally untested, no subject unmeasured. He understands that power is not a possession, but a balance constantly recalibrated, a fire that must be fed but never allowed to burn uncontrolled. Men are easily deceived because they wish to be deceived. They prefer the comfort of a false promise to the weight of an unpleasant truth. This weakness is not a defect, but a resource. The ruler who understands this crafts illusions that align with the desires of the masses, and through those illusions, he governs without resistance. Yet deception alone cannot endure. It must be anchored in structures of force. The theater persuades the crowd, but the sword ensures obedience. To rely only on one is folly. To wield both in unison is mastery. Silence is a weapon as sharp as speech. Words once spoken cannot be withdrawn, and promises once given cannot be erased. But silence conceals intention, disarms suspicion, and creates a void into which others project their own fears and hopes. The engineer of success uses silence to observe, to measure, to let rivals expose themselves, and then speaks only when words strike like arrows. To govern is not to speak often, but to speak with weight, to ensure that every utterance shifts the balance of perception. In this, restraint is not weakness but the highest form of control. Discipline is the spine of command. Without discipline, armies disintegrate, institutions rot, and states collapse from within. Discipline is not born from goodwill. It is imposed by structure, by punishment, by vigilance. The wise ruler does not expect men to discipline themselves, for human nature resists order. He creates systems that make disorder costly, that bind ambition to duty, that channel selfishness toward collective survival. Success is not the triumph of noble men, but the triumph of discipline over chaos, of order over decay, of necessity over desire. Cruelty is feared because it is misunderstood. It is not the reckless indulgence of blood, but the precise application of fear where it preserves stability. Excess cruelty breeds rebellion, but cruelty applied with calculation prevents it. The engineer of success knows that the spectacle of punishment resonates longer than the words of law, and that one decisive act of severity can prevent countless acts of treachery. Mercy can pacify, But mercy without the shadow of cruelty is dismissed as weakness. The balance between them is not moral but strategic, measured in the survival of the state. Wealth is both a tool and a danger. It buys loyalty when fear is not enough, funds armies when force is required, and creates the illusion of prosperity that keeps the crowd docile. But wealth also breeds envy, corrupts discipline, and tempts men into softness. The ruler must use wealth as he uses poison in careful doses, never so much that it weakens the body of the state. He must ensure that wealth circulates under his control, rewarding those who serve, starving those who oppose, and never allowing fortune to become more powerful than command. Success is engineered when wealth serves power, not when power serves wealth. History is a graveyard of rulers who mistook adoration for permanence, who confused fortune for structure, who mistook the silence of the crowd for loyalty. Their downfall was not written by fate, but by their failure to engineer their survival. They believed that success was earned by virtue, that power was secured by gratitude, that peace was the natural reward of victory. But the truth is merciless. Success must be built and rebuilt endlessly, and the moment one ceases to construct it, decay begins. The engineer of success never ceases to labor, never ceases to calculate, never ceases to prepare, for he knows that the architecture of power is never complete. Success is not the fruit of chance, but the harvest of design. Every victory is rooted in preparation, every empire in calculation, every enduring order in the relentless discipline of foresight. Those who wait for opportunity are consumed by those who create it. The ruler who engineers success does not trust the mercy of fate. He constructs systems that absorb misfortune and transform it into advantage. Chance may strike, but only the unprepared are destroyed by it. For the prepared, even disaster becomes a tool, even loss becomes a lesson, even exile becomes a forge. The art of command lies not in pleasing men, but in directing them. To please is to follow their desires. To direct is to shape their instincts toward ends they would never choose for themselves. The engineer of success recognizes that men resist openly, but submit quietly when confronted with structures they cannot overturn. He creates laws that appear just but serve power, traditions that seem eternal but are constructed, institutions that feel inevitable but are born from strategy. Men obey because they believe they are bound by history, but in truth they are bound by the designs of those who ruled before them. Deception is the currency of politics, but not all deceptions are equal. The clumsy lie breeds suspicion. The elegant illusion creates faith. A promise spoken with conviction binds more firmly than chains, for men imprison themselves with belief. The wise ruler engineers belief by crafting narratives that are both false and useful, illusions that flatter men while chaining them. He does not rely on persuasion alone, but ensures that behind every illusion stands a force that cannot be denied. In this balance between illusion and enforcement lies the architecture of enduring power. Enemies are necessary. Without enemies, there is no unity. Without threats, there is no obedience. Without fear, there is no order. The engineer of success does not seek to eliminate all foes, for a state without adversaries decays into complacency. Instead, he manages enmity, selecting rivals who serve his narrative, magnifying dangers that justify his command, directing the hatred of the masses towards safe targets. By shaping who the people fear, he strengthens their dependence on his protection. To be without enemies is perilous. To control one's enemies is mastery. Memory is short, but scars endure. The masses forget victories quickly, but they remember punishments that cut deep, betrayals that exposed them, humiliations that burned. A ruler engineers success by mastering the memory of his subjects, ensuring that what they recall supports his command. He amplifies victories with monuments and ceremonies. He buries defeats with silence. He transforms scars into warnings. History is not what happened, but what is remembered, and memory itself is a battlefield. The ruler who wins this battle governs not only the present but the past, and through the past he controls the future. Isolation is as dangerous as exposure. A ruler cut off from the instincts of his people blinds himself, yet a ruler too exposed to their passions weakens himself. The balance lies in distance, enough proximity to sense their moods, enough distance to remain untouchable. The engineer of success knows when to descend among the people with gestures of familiarity, and when to retreat behind walls that magnify awe. He is present when it strengthens loyalty, absent when presence would diminish respect. In this rhythm of distance and closeness, he cultivates authority that feels both human and divine. War is not merely fought on battlefields, but in the minds of men. Armies clash with steel, but states clash with ideas, perceptions, and fears. The engineer of success treats every arena as war, diplomacy, religion, trade, spectacle, each a battlefield where advantage must be gained, where weakness cannot be shown, where allies may become adversaries and adversaries allies. Peace itself is only another form of war, waged with treaties instead of swords, but with consequences no less fatal. To forget this is to prepare one's own defeat. No ruler is immortal, yet the ambition of rulers is immortality. The wise ruler engineers not only his own reign, but the inheritance of his legacy. He builds institutions that outlast his body, traditions that survive his name, structures that continue his command even after he is dust. To fail in this is to rule for nothing, for all victories perish with the flesh unless they are fixed into the bones of the state. Success is not only the preservation of the self, but the creation of permanence, the shaping of time so that one's will extends beyond one's life. Appearances of virtue must never be abandoned, even when true virtue is discarded. Men forgive cruelty when cloaked in necessity, but they do not forgive contempt for virtue itself. The ruler must therefore perform morality for the eyes of the masses, presenting justice, mercy, and piety even when necessity demands the opposite. Success is engineered by ensuring that deeds of cruelty appear as acts of justice, that betrayals are dressed as duties, that ambitions are cloaked as sacrifices. The masses will follow illusions if they are consistent, and consistency is the armor of deceit. Power is not a possession, but a current. It flows towards strength, away from weakness, towards certainty, away from hesitation. To cling to power as if it were an object is to lose it. To treat it as a force to be guided is to endure. The engineer of success does not hoard power but channels it, redirecting it into institutions, allies, armies, and narratives that reinforce his command. He knows that the current shifts constantly, but he builds dams and channels to ensure that no matter how it moves, it always flows back to him. Success is a construction of layers, each one hiding the one beneath, each one giving the illusion of permanence. Beneath the ceremony lies calculation, beneath the oath lies coercion, beneath the vision lies necessity. Men admire the surface, never questioning the scaffolding that holds it upright. But the ruler cannot be deceived by his own illusions. He must see the beams beneath the marble, the foundation beneath the banners, the blood beneath the applause. For it is there that strength is measured, and it is there that survival is secured. Allies are not companions, they are instruments. They stand with you only as long as your ascent serves theirs. Their loyalty is a reflection of your utility, nothing more. The engineer of success does not mistake friendship for permanence, but treats alliance as a contract with an expiration date. He binds allies through fear of loss, not through affection, for affection dissolves while fear endures. When they cease to serve, they must be discarded with precision, for hesitation in cutting ties is hesitation in preserving power. To trust blindly is to dig one's own grave, but to calculate loyalty is to engineer longevity. The masses crave stability more than freedom. They prefer the certainty of discipline to the chaos of choice, the illusion of protection to the reality of risk. The ruler who understands this engineers success by offering them order in exchange for obedience. He does not ask them to think, he asks them to follow. He gives them rituals that soothe, enemies that unify, symbols that inspire. They believe they are choosing, but their choices have already been designed. Freedom is dangerous, but controlled freedom, the semblance of agency within boundaries, keeps them docile while strengthening the ruler's hand. Violence is a language older than words. It speaks directly to instinct, bypassing reason. A single display of decisive violence imprints itself upon memory more deeply than 1,000 speeches. The engineer of success understands that cruelty, when used sparingly and publicly, multiplies its effect. It is not the act itself, but the lesson it teaches that matters. Men learn quickly when punishment is swift, but they grow reckless when discipline falters. Thus, violence must never be indulgence, but it must never be absent either. It must be the silent foundation upon which all other illusions are built. Secrecy is the breath of power. What is hidden generates fear, and what is concealed invites speculation. Men fear what they cannot see, and in that fear lies control. The ruler who reveals all his intentions makes himself predictable, and the predictable ruler is vulnerable. Success is engineered by mastering concealment, by letting only fragments escape, by ensuring that every revelation is deliberate. To be unreadable is to be untouchable. To be transparent is to invite manipulation. Invisibility is not weakness, but strength, for men cannot strike at what they cannot discern. Fortune favors the audacious only when audacity is disciplined. Reckless boldness destroys as often as it elevates, but calculated boldness reshapes the world. The engineer of success distinguishes between impulse and design. He acts decisively, but never without preparation. He strikes swiftly, but always where the enemy is weakest. He seizes opportunities others hesitate before, but only after ensuring that the consequences strengthen his command. To appear fearless while being prepared is mastery. To act without foresight is ruin disguised as courage. Men respect consistency even when it is false. A ruler who contradicts himself openly erodes trust, but a ruler who cloaks contradiction within narrative appears steady. The engineer of success knows that consistency is not the absence of change, but the mastery of perception. He can reverse policies, betray allies, abandon promises, so long as he frames each shift as continuity. The masses forget contradictions when they are wrapped in stories of necessity, destiny, or justice. In this way, change becomes invisible, and the appearance of stability is preserved even amid constant recalibration. Fear of decline haunts every ruler, for decline begins long before it is seen. It begins in indulgence, in complacency, in the belief that victories secure themselves. The engineer of success does not indulge in the softness of triumph. He remains vigilant even when unchallenged, suspicious even when adored, disciplined even when prosperous. He understands that decline is invisible at first, like rot beneath wood, and that only constant maintenance prevents collapse. Success must be guarded with greater care than it was achieved, for the fall is swifter than the rise, and once begun, it rarely halts. The will to command is both a burden and a necessity. It isolates, for few can bear the weight of decision. It condemns, for every choice breeds enemies. It corrodes, for endless calculation hardens the heart. Yet without it, the state collapses, order dissolves, and ambition devours itself. The engineer of success accepts this burden without illusion, without hope for gratitude, without expectation of peace. He commands not for glory but for necessity, not for adoration but for survival. Success is the crown of those who endure its weight without faltering, who embrace the solitude of command as the price of permanence. Success is engineered through the mastery of timing. To act too soon is to expose weakness. To act too late is to surrender initiative. The ruler who endures is the one who waits with patience until the moment ripens and then strikes with precision. Men often mistake haste for courage and delay for cowardice, but true command lies in discerning the interval between opportunity and ruin. A single act at the right moment outweighs 1,000 gestures squandered in disorder. The engineer of success moves not according to impulse, but according to the rhythm of necessity, and in that rhythm, he dictates the future. Suspicion is a weapon that protects more than it corrodes. A ruler who trusts blindly is already defeated, for betrayal comes not from strangers but from those closest to power. Ministers plot, generals calculate, allies whisper. To ignore this truth is to fall victim to it, yet suspicion without discipline paralyzes. The engineer of success uses suspicion not to drown in doubt, but to sharpen vigilance, to test loyalty with pressure, to ensure that every bond is constantly weighed. Trust is granted not once but continuously, measured by actions, verified by necessity. Only in this way does power avoid being stolen from within. The state is a machine, and like all machines, it requires maintenance, fuel, and sacrifice. Its gears grind with ambition, its levers are pulled by fear, its wheels turn with discipline. To mistake it for a family, a community, or a temple is to misunderstand its nature. It is not bound by affection, but by necessity, not by sentiment, but by force. The ruler engineers success by treating the state as a mechanism that must be tended, adjusted, repaired, and sometimes purged. Where others see disorder, he sees machinery. Where others dream of harmony, he calculates balance. To govern is to keep the machine alive, regardless of the cost. Rivals are more useful alive than dead when their existence serves as a warning. The engineer of success does not destroy every enemy, for annihilation can breed martyrs, and martyrs inspire rebellion. Instead, he cripples them, reduces them, binds them in dependency, or leaves them visible as defeated symbols. In this way, their presence strengthens his command, reminding others of his victory and deterring further defiance. To kill is final, to control is perpetual. Success endures when enemies become instruments rather than corpses, when their existence reinforces the ruler's strength rather than threatens it. Excessive mercy is as dangerous as excessive cruelty. Mercy invites exploitation when it is predictable. Cruelty invites revolt when it is indulgent. The engineer of success applies both as one applies medicine in measured doses, neither too weak to be useless nor too strong to kill the body. He understands that men are neither angels nor beasts, but creatures who respond to balance. When they believe mercy will always protect them, they grow reckless. When they believe cruelty will always destroy them, they grow desperate. But when they believe either may come depending on their obedience, they submit willingly. Stability is an illusion crafted through constant motion. The state may appear calm, but beneath the surface it is always shifting, always adapting to new threats and new ambitions. The ruler engineers this illusion by managing turbulence without allowing it to be seen. He changes alliances while projecting continuity, adjusts policies while maintaining symbols, suppresses rebellions before they are named. To the masses, it appears as order. To the ruler, it is perpetual recalibration. The genius of success lies in concealing movement within the appearance of stillness, so that change is never feared and stability is never doubted. Power demands isolation, for no one shares command without plotting to own it. Yet isolation breeds blindness if it becomes absolute. The ruler must therefore balance solitude with observation, distance with connection. He listens but does not confide. He observes but does not reveal. He surrounds himself with instruments but never with equals. Companionship is a luxury he cannot afford, for every confidant carries the seed of betrayal. Success is engineered by accepting this solitude, not as a punishment, but as a condition of survival. The higher the throne, the narrower the circle, until at the summit, the ruler stands alone. Fear of the unknown is a weapon greater than visible force. Men resist what they can see, measure, and understand, but they submit to what is shrouded in mystery. The ruler who cultivates unpredictability keeps others cautious, hesitant, and divided. He appears at times merciful, at times ruthless, at times silent, at times decisive, never fully known, never fully calculable. In this uncertainty lies control, for men cannot unite against what they cannot predict. Success is engineered not by consistency of action, but by consistency of dominance, by ensuring that whatever the gesture, it always leads back to fear and obedience. Death is the final equalizer. Yet even death can be engineered into an instrument of power. The ruler who dies unprepared dissolves his work in an instant, leaving his state vulnerable to vultures. But the ruler who prepares his death through succession, through legacy, through the embedding of his will into institutions, continues to command from the grave. His presence lingers in the structures he built. His authority survives in the fear he instilled. His narrative endures in the history he shaped. Success is not merely to rule in life, but to extend one's command into death, to ensure that even absence strengthens rather than weakens. Power is a harvest reaped from human weakness, and weakness is endless. Men crave certainty. They seek protection. They fear isolation, and they hunger for advantage. These hungers drive them to submit, even as they whisper of freedom. The ruler engineers success by feeding these weaknesses with measured portions, never allowing abundance, never allowing famine. He gives just enough to bind loyalty, just enough to prevent revolt, and always keeps the source of provision under his control. For what men depend on, they obey, and dependency is the truest form of chains. The face of justice must be displayed, even when justice itself is absent. Men require the appearance of fairness to accept their subjugation. The wise ruler cloaks necessity in law, cloaks cruelty in verdicts, cloaks ambition in the language of duty. He does not expose the raw machinery of power, for naked power breeds resistance, but he allows the people to believe that justice rules even as he bends it. In this illusion lies stability, for men will endure what they believe to be just, even when it is only a mask for domination. Religion is a tool older than empires. It binds men with invisible chains. It sanctifies obedience. It frames submission as virtue. The engineer of success does not despise belief, but employs it, shaping rituals, symbols, and narratives that align divine order with his command. He allows men to see his rule not merely as political, but as inevitable, woven into the fabric of the cosmos. To challenge him becomes not only rebellion against the state, but blasphemy against heaven. In this union of faith and command lies one of the strongest fortresses ever built. Time destroys all illusions unless they are renewed. A ruler who believes that past victories secure present loyalty deceives himself. Gratitude evaporates, fear dulls, and admiration fades. The engineer of success renews them constantly, reminding subjects of victories through monuments, renewing fear through displays of strength, refreshing admiration through staged acts of generosity. He understands that men forget quickly, and so he engineers memory itself, ensuring that his presence is never absent from their lives. In this perpetual renewal lies endurance, for power neglected is power already lost. Spies are the hidden nerves of power. Through them, the ruler sees what others conceal, hears what others whisper, anticipates what others plot. Without them, he is blind, trapped in the illusions of flattery and deception. The engineer of success fills his state with eyes and ears, rewarding truth, punishing silence, ensuring that nothing escapes his knowledge. Yet he also sows falsehoods through these channels, confusing enemies, dividing rivals, feeding suspicion where it weakens opposition. Information is both shield and sword, and those who neglect it fall prey to shadows they cannot see. Corruption is inevitable, but it can be mastered. Men will always seek advantage. They will always sell loyalty for gain. They will always exploit position for themselves. To fight corruption entirely is to exhaust the state. To ignore it is to let rot consume the structure. The ruler engineers success by directing corruption, allowing it where it strengthens, punishing it where it threatens, ensuring that those who profit do so only through him. In this way, vice becomes not a danger, but a resource, another tool of command rather than a crack in the foundation. The masses cannot be trusted with truth, for truth is complex and unstable, and complexity breeds unrest. They are steadied by certainty, even if it is false, and pacified by clarity, even if it is shallow. The ruler engineers narratives that simplify the world, dividing it into allies and enemies, loyalty and treachery, order and chaos. In this simplification, obedience becomes natural, resistance becomes foolish, and the people feel secure in their ignorance. Truth remains the possession of the ruler, while illusion becomes the comfort of the ruled. Ruthlessness is not savagery, but precision. The engineer of success does not kill indiscriminately, but he kills without hesitation when necessity demands. He does not torture for spectacle, but he makes examples when rebellion stirs. He does not exterminate rivals out of hatred, but he eliminates them when their existence endangers stability. This clarity separates cruelty from chaos, discipline from bloodlust. The ruler who indulges in savagery loses control, but the ruler who hesitates at ruthlessness loses power. Success endures only for those who can act without pity when the survival of command is at stake. Glory is a dangerous temptation. It seduces rulers into acts that serve vanity rather than necessity, into wars for fame, into displays for applause, into decisions made for the echo of admiration rather than the weight of survival. The engineer of success resists this poison, seeing glory as a tool rather than a goal. He accepts praise but is not ruled by it. He accepts triumph but does not worship it. He knows that the applause of today becomes the scorn of tomorrow, and that only preservation matters. In silence, away from spectacle, he engineers the true permanence of his reign. Success is never innocent. It is born of choices that others could not make, sacrifices others would not bear, and deceptions others failed to imagine. Every empire is built on bones, every throne upon betrayals, every law upon force. To deny this is to live among the ruled, not the rulers. The engineer of success accepts this inheritance of blood without apology, for power is not justified by virtue but by endurance. If it survives, it is legitimate. If it falls, it was never real. History remembers not the purity of intention, but the permanence of command. Men will always prefer the lie that comforts to the truth that unsettles. The ruler who engineers success provides these lies, weaving them into the very fabric of society until they are indistinguishable from reality. He does not ask whether they believe the narrative. He ensures there is no alternative to it. Repetition turns fiction into truth, and enforcement turns doubt into silence. By the time men realize the illusion, it is already too costly to resist. In this way, myths outlive facts, and power outlives scrutiny. Institutions are weapons more durable than armies. Armies defend, but institutions perpetuate. They extend the will of the ruler into every corner, enforcing obedience without his presence, shaping behavior without his command. Courts, councils, schools, churches, all are levers through which control becomes invisible, normalized, unquestioned. The engineer of success embeds his authority so deeply into these institutions that even when he is gone, his influence remains. To seize power without capturing institutions is to build on sand. To master institutions is to engineer permanence. Generosity is a subtle form of control. When men receive gifts, they believe themselves favored. When those gifts cease, they feel betrayed. The ruler who engineers success uses generosity, not as kindness, but as tether. He gives enough to bind, never enough to liberate. Rewards are distributed not as charity, but as chains, linking ambition to his hand, ensuring that every advancement in wealth or honor leads back to him. Thus, generosity becomes dependence, and dependence becomes obedience. War is the crucible in which rulers are tested. In war, illusions fall, allies reveal their treachery, and subjects show their true loyalty. The engineer of success does not enter war lightly, but when forced, he wages it with precision. He does not seek glory but survival, not conquest for its own sake, but security through strength. He knows that prolonged wars weaken even the victor, but decisive wars cement command. War, when mastered, is not destruction but renewal, a fire that purges weakness and reinforces fear. Obedience is not maintained by law alone, but by spectacle. Punishments must be visible, rewards must be public, ceremonies must display the theater of command. Men are guided less by rules than by images, less by reasoning than by impression. The engineer of success choreographs these images as carefully as battles, ensuring that every ritual reinforces hierarchy, Every celebration strengthens legitimacy. Every punishment imprints obedience. The state becomes a stage, and the ruler its director, writing the script of submission for all to follow. Contempt is more dangerous than hatred. Men who hate still fear. Men who hold contempt no longer respect. The ruler must never allow himself to become ridiculous, never expose weakness to the point of mockery. Fear can coexist with respect, but once scorn emerges, obedience dissolves. The engineer of success cultivates dignity even in cruelty, authority even in defeat, ensuring that no gesture undermines his aura. To be feared and mocked is fatal, but to be feared and respected is unshakable. Secrets are more powerful than proclamations. What is withheld breeds more speculation than what is revealed. The ruler who engineers success keeps his plans veiled, his intentions ambiguous, his decisions sudden. Men cannot conspire against what they do not understand. Mystery magnifies authority. Unpredictability magnifies fear. By controlling the unknown, the ruler controls the imagination of his subjects, and imagination binds tighter than chains. Every system of power carries within it the seeds of its own decay. Success is engineered not by denying this truth, but by anticipating it. The ruler watches for the first signs of rot, the complacency of officials, the arrogance of generals, the murmurs of the crowd, and strikes before the disease spreads. He replaces the corrupt before corruption festers. He disciplines the ambitious before ambition becomes rebellion. He renews laws before they grow obsolete. Decay is inevitable, but collapse is not. Those who engineer success turn decay into renewal, preserving strength by cutting away weakness without hesitation. Fate is not to be trusted. Men speak of destiny to excuse their failures and fortune to explain their victories. The ruler who endures understands that both are illusions. Success is not the gift of fate, but the labor of necessity. Fortune may open a door, but only discipline walks through it. Chance may grant an advantage, but only vigilance preserves it. Those who wait for fate are ruled by those who engineer it. Success ends not with applause, but with silence. When the crown rests upon the head and the enemies lie buried or broken, when the people chant names they once whispered with suspicion, the ruler must know that this moment is not triumph, but transition. For every reign carries within it the seed of its decline, and every fortress, no matter how high, faces the erosion of time. The engineer of success does not die in illusion. He accepts that permanence is never absolute. What he leaves behind is not invulnerability, but design structures strong enough to outlast him, institutions disciplined enough to resist decay, fear and respect woven deep enough into the marrow of society that his absence does not unravel it. The ending of a reign is not measured in how it falls, but in what remains. Some rulers leave ashes, others leave echoes. A few leave frameworks that shape generations. The true engineer of success measures his legacy not in monuments, but in the order he leaves, not in the loyalty of men, but in the structures that bind them, not in fleeting affection, but in systems that endure. If his state survives him, if his name endures in the architecture of laws, armies, and myths, then he has succeeded. If it crumbles with his body, then his life was vanity dressed as command. In the final reckoning, the illusions dissolve, the rituals fade, the masks fall away. What remains is the architecture of necessity, discipline, fear, narrative, and control. These are the bricks of survival, and they are the only crown that endures. Success was never earned, never gifted, never deserved. It was built, engineered against time, against envy, against the treachery of men and the chaos of fortune. It was sustained not by hope, but by vigilance, not by virtue, but by calculation, not by justice, but by necessity. And so the ruler departs, not as a figure of glory, but as an architect whose designs continue beyond his breath. The people will forget his face, but they will live within his order. The enemies will curse his name, but they will move within the boundaries he drew. The state will endure, and that endurance is his immortality. For in the end, success belongs not to those who dreamed, nor to those who waited, but to those who built with ruthless clarity, who understood that to command is to construct, to preserve is to calculate, and to endure is to engineer. Thus the final truth stands clear, sharp, and without disguise. Success is not earned, it is not owed, it is not bestowed by justice or fate. Success is engineered, and only those who understand this truth can rule, survive, and leave behind more than dust.